Have a guest, but also we are joined by our correspondent Aditya Wadwan. Aditya, I want to go back to the events which happened yesterday and focus really on the chaos that was caused when the hostages were released by Hamas. Can you explain the scenes for us?
Well, absolutely, Josh. As the prisoner swapping was being done between both the sides, both Israel and scenes were very chaotic. On one hand, because what has happened is from the Israeli side, they had postponed the release of hostages because Benjamin Netanyahu was very angered at the state of the condition, in which the Israeli prisoners, the Israeli captives were being brought by the Hamas. That is why they had, as per the Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu's spokesperson, he was very angered, and the Hamas prisoners were released later in the day. The scenes at the scenes where the hostages were being exchanged were very chaotic. All the security men and the personnel of the Israeli Defense Forces were escorting the Israeli captives that were released by Hamas in a very safety van. They were taken into a safety vehicle, and then from there on they were transported to the nearby hospitals where their loved ones of the Israeli families, they were waiting. And on top of it, what has happened, that the Mossad, the spy agency of Israel, had tweeted on its social media handle that about one of the Israeli hostages named Agam Berger, a female Israeli soldier, that now we are very happy that Agam is now free from the clutches of those savages, the Hamas savages. So the scenes were absolutely chaotic. Still the Israeli Defense Forces were keeping all their were on vigil so that to avoid any untoward incident couldn't happen, because we have seen there have been many disagreements between both the sides as far as this exchange of hostages is
Yes,
concerned.
thank you, Aditya. Apologies to cut in there. We are running shorter on time. Also joining us on this discussion is Ambassador Mark Sofer, who is a former Israeli ambassador to India, joining us live from Israel. Ambassador Sofer, thank you very much for your time. I want to move on to some other updates. The Iranian foreign minister has met with Hamas officials. How important is this, and should people in Israel be fearful of Iranian interaction with Hamas?
Well, first of all, I think we need to make a distinction between the Iranian regime and the Iranian people. The people themselves are very forward-looking, they're very erudite, they're very looking to a better future for their country. But we have a medieval regime governing Iran, which is a throwback to the 15th century. And what we are seeing really in the Middle East, and I think apart from the Middle East as well, is that wherever the Iranian regime places its finger, there is instability, there is violence, there is death, and there is murder. That is what Iran's government or regime is all about. And so when they meet the Hamas, they are really trying to fix their massive defeat by losing the Hezbollah, which has become a weakened and lily-livered organization in Lebanon, by the Hamas, which is basically non-existent as a military force anymore, in Syria, where they have been kicked out summarily. So Iran has lost its complete influence. They are trying to rebuild it by meeting Hamas leaders, but they really have fallen back onto the primitive medieval Houthi people in Iran and in Yemen, and that's really all they have left. So I don't really place too much on this, but we expect this from the Iranian regime. We expect violence, we expect the exaltation of terror and hate, because that's all we've had from them since Khomeini has come to power in '78. So really this is where we are right now. I don't think it's different from where we were yesterday or where we will be tomorrow as far as the regime is concerned, unless it's thrown onto the dust heap of history.
Also joining us is Professor Madhav Nalapat, the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian. Thank you, Professor Nalapat, for joining us. Antonio Guterres, the UN chief, has said that up to 2,500 children within Gaza are at a risk of imminent death. What needs to be done, do you think, to make sure those people are evacuated and given the sort of medical support they need?
Well, there's no doubt that those children need to be evacuated, and the big question is who's going to accept them? Will Egypt accept them? Will any other country accept them? You can't expect Israel to accept them. So who is going to accept these children? And I'm quite certain that once there is a country that is willing to accept the children, the IDF, which is a very professional force, will agree to the children crossing over. But there has to be a state that is willing to accept these 2,500 children. So that, I think, would be a major sticking point. And of course, as far as the previous discussion was concerned, I fully agree with him that the Iranian people are different from the Iranian regime, and the Iranian regime has this absurd delusion of an elimination of the Jewish state. I mean, some groups, that is Hezbollah, have even got the if I may say so, disgusting goal of eliminating a people who suffered untold hell in the 20th century and are determined not to repeat that in the 21st century. That's precisely why the IDF is going all out to ensure that the military capacity of Hamas is degraded to the point where it cannot rebuild. And I think the same is going to happen to Hezbollah. As far as Iran is concerned, Iran is a severely diminished power after the fall of Bashar Assad. Its supply lines to Hezbollah have been cut. It's a severely diminished power. And frankly, going around with shuttle diplomacy with nothing to offer is not going to hold out much promise for either Hamas or Hezbollah. And frankly, the Hamas is not going to gain in any way from any such meeting, because Iran is a vastly diminished power after the fall of the Assad regime. Of course, what has taken its place is something pretty horrible, but it's very, very likely and that the factions within it will start fighting each other. But one good point is that the land bridge from Iran to Hezbollah has been cut. And that, I think, is something that all of us who are interested in genuine peace should welcome.